and welcome to the Vermilion Sports Podcast highlights here on our Vermilion Sports YouTube channel. Yes, we are YouTubers now, and no, we're not good at continuity because we keep moving in different spots. Also, we have a sports/news writer for the Vermilion joining us, CJ Williams. You've been on the podcast twice now. How's it feel to be here, man?
I'm ecstatic.
Yeah.
This is a day, right?
This is a moment right here in Vermilion Sports YouTube history. And I'm joined, as always, by sports writer Charles Long.
We got our big three set.
The big three is set. And the Vermilion's big three right here, CJ, Charlie, and myself, Louis Bergeron, sports editor for Vermilion. We're here to talk about the Ragin Cajuns' homecoming game against New Mexico State. We're going to be previewing that game after the Cajuns moved to 2-3. They recently won 42-27 against Texas State this past weekend. Charlie, what was your initial reaction to that win?
Well, going into it, we said it was a must-win. You know, after the Coastal loss, they were under 500, 1-3. You can't go to 1-4 in the season with a few more tough games coming up. So 2-3 was where they needed to be. That's where they are, and now they're going to play New Mexico State, which should be a winnable game. So they might be able to get back up to 500.
CJ?
Fast start.
Yeah.
Maybe finish as well. Hopefully, we can carry the momentum from the first half into the homecoming game.
Mm-hmm. And we kind of recapped Texas State in the full episode of the Vermilion Sports Podcast, but just kind of what can you take away from that Texas State game that has you hopeful against New Mexico State?
I think it really further established what the coaching staff is thinking. They know where their strength is. The two backs, they rely on them heavily.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell and Trey Regis. Elijah Mitchell went for 191 yards on 20 carries and 3 touchdowns against Texas State, and then Trey Regis 100 yards and 1 touchdown. So the running backs, what has you hopeful going to New Mexico State after the Texas State game?
Well, as we'll preview in a little bit, New Mexico State's rushing defense isn't that great, so we might see another really big performance from those two running backs.
Yeah, the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns football team will play New Mexico State on October 13th. That's this Saturday. This will be Louisiana head coach's Billy Napier's first homecoming game with Louisiana, yes. So that must be exciting for him and the rest of the coaching staff experiencing their first homecoming game with this athletic program. The Ragin Cajuns have historically found success in these matchups. They have a record of 11-7 in homecoming games. Let's talk about New Mexico State. You know, in this matchup, their all-time record at Cajun Field against New Mexico State is 5-2. So historically have had success. They won their homecoming game last year against New Mexico State. So there's been success there for the Ragin Cajuns team against New Mexico State. Let's look at the Louisiana defense going against the New Mexico State offense. So New Mexico State's offense, they're averaging 21 points a game. The Aggies are rushing for 97 yards and throwing for 225 yards per game. What can Louisiana's defense do in this game that can show improvement from last season and what we've seen earlier in the season?
Number one thing, dealing with mobile quarterbacks, keeping them in the pocket, and even on design runs, understanding, keeping your gaps, keeping your assignments, and they haven't done a good job with that. So hopefully they can start this week.
Yeah. Charlie?
So, in my opinion, last season, the New Mexico State game was actually one of the better performances by the defense. They did give up 34 points, but, you know, that's a far cry from, like, the 50 points per game that they were giving up throughout the season. So, hopefully they have another good performance against this team. An issue, though, is the starting quarterback for New Mexico State is pretty hot right now. He's playing really well, so that's going to be a big challenge for him.
Yeah, the New Mexico State quarterback, Josh Atkins, he started last week against Liberty in New Mexico State's win through 34-51 pass completions and then over 400 yards. He had 4 touchdowns in the game, so really impressive in that performance for New Mexico State. And as we saw, you know, you mentioned keeping the quarterbacks in the pocket. The Texas State quarterback, Tyler Vitt, not known as a mobile quarterback per se, and then you give up 92 yards. Josh Atkins kind of riding in on a high from his game against Liberty. So it's kind of like, what will he do against the Ragin Cajuns defense? So that's definitely something to look out for. Now, looking at the Louisiana's offense against New Mexico State's defense, their defense is giving up 40 points a game, Charlie. They give up 245 rushing yards per game. So is this another big day for Regis, Mitchell, and Calais?
Absolutely. I don't think it's that big of a stretch to say that they go easily over 300 yards again for the third time this season. And that seems to be kind of a key for them, for the Cajuns. Both times that they've won, they've had over 300 rushing yards. So I think that against this New Mexico State defense, that probably won't be prepared for Regis and Mitchell. You know, in the Texas State game, the way that they were so effective was because they kept each other fresh. They each had 20 carries. They were each shifted in and out of the game, so they were able to stay fresh, keep gashing the defense. I think you're going to see something very similar with New Mexico State, where both of them get a bunch of carries and they're both going to be very effective. So I think, as you said, I think we're going to have over 300 yards rushing again.
Wow, and that would be impressive. Even if New Mexico State's giving them 245 yards, we know the running back core can do this game in and game out. Now, we looked at the running backs, CJ. I want to talk about the quarterbacks, Andre Nunez and Levi Lewis, the two quarterback system, their predetermined drives. Levi Lewis had a great performance against Texas State, 5 of 5, 81 yards. He led 2 touchdown drives. And Andre Nunez, 9 of 18, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception against Texas State. He's been known to be accurate throughout the season, Andre Nunez, and even last season. I want to look at the two quarterback system. It's been off and on this season. Is that how you describe the two quarterback system so far?
Yeah, when it works well. When it doesn't work, you can tell. And they had a chance to tie the game against Coastal Carolina. Went with the quarterback change. Really was probably the turning point in the game. Got stopped and didn't come all the way back. I think when you have a two quarterback system, it's important at some point in the season to figure out who your starter is and who your main guy is. And I think that guy can be Nunez. They trust him to throw more. He throws a lot more than Levi Lewis, and he's got a bad defense coming up. They give up 40 points a game. Hopefully, I know the backs are going to be the stars, but hopefully Nunez can have an accurate day.
Yeah, I was going to say,
these receivers.
Yeah, is this a game where you see the two quarterback system work like it did against Grambling State?
Everything will work against New Mexico State.
You think so?
Because
like everything is going to be in motion?
They're not a very talented defense, but it's how well does it work and how well does it click and how many self-inflicted wounds are there? How many inaccurate throws? How many fumbles? If we don't do that, we'll win big.
And so, if we do all those things, it's a win. Does this feel like an important game? Does this feel like a must-win game, Charlie?
I think they're on the path back to 500. This is a must-win game because if you get this win, you're back to 500. Whole new season. Of course, you got the 3 real tough Sun Belt games after that with App State, Arkansas State, and Troy. But after that, if you can, win maybe 1, maybe 2 of those games, you're looking great for a bowl game this season.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I said, this is a must-win. You got to win the games that you're favored in. This is a game they're favored in. They need to win it. And as you were kind of saying with Nunez, I'm expecting to see a bounce-back performance from him. 9 of the 18 is not really what you expect. He threw an interception in the red zone the first time. The Cajuns weren't able to convert a touchdown in the red zone all season, so it was kind of surprising. But if he's played better at home. So if he shows up at home and plays how I expect him to play, I think that he could maybe start to further, push himself as the starter of this team. But if Lewis comes in and plays good snaps like he did against Texas State, he can be demanding more snaps as well. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. And is there anything else in this matchup that you're looking out for?
I'm looking out for the secondary. You had a hot quarterback. Secondary, not the strength of this team. Well, not viewed as the strength of this team. I want to see him play a good game. I want to see him press. I want to see him be confident. They play a lot of off coverage. Get away from that, especially against a less than talented offense. Get some more confidence heading into the final 3 games of the season, the big 3.
And is this a must-win game for Louisiana?
Absolutely.